Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mike with Northwest School of Fly Fishing, the old fish hobo. And today's video is about choosing the right midge pattern for a winter midge hatch. I can be out there in the wintertime and I can see fish rising, and two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to really catch a lot of fish or I'm going to struggle to catch some fish. It happens to us all. We see fish rising. It's in the middle of the winter. They can only be eating a midge. So it's not a question of what kind of fly that I tie on, it's what kind of midge pattern that I tie on. And that's really the dividing point between catching a lot of fish and not catching very many fish at all. And that's what we really want to talk about today, is because midge hatches can be a very technical thing for a lot of people because of what we see. The obvious, for me, the obvious is they're eating midges and they're right in front of me and there's a lot of them and I can go out there and catch them. That's the obvious thing. What's not so obvious sometimes is I could be wrong. There's three things that we need to really talk about in terms of fly patterns. But what we really see, are we seeing a midge hatch, or are we seeing an egg-laying event, a midge egg-laying event, where they're actually laying eggs on the water, or are we seeing a combination of both? And we need the flies that will take care of all three of those scenarios. In any event, there's basically three types of midge patterns that we use. One is an adult, and that's pretty obvious. It mimics the adult pattern. And we can use that for an egg-laying event, but rarely for a midge hatch. Second thing is we got to have that midge pupa pattern. And midge pupa is that state of how that midge is when it leaves the bottom to reach the surface. And what a midge pupa is in its burrows or tunnels, that midge goes through a metamorphosis where it's morphing from a larva into an adult fly. But in Mother Nature, there's water to contend with, and that's the medium they got to swim through. So what Mother Nature does is it puts them in like a mummy sleeping bag, called a cuticle. It's fully developed. It's a fully developed fly in there. It's just covered in this cuticle, and this cuticle will hold the gas and all the things it needs to swim to the surface. Much better than it can be a bunch of legs and wings, and it can swim to the surface. Where it reaches the surface, still in that pupa state. So a midge pupa on the bottom, if you're nymphing, and a midge pupa at the surface is the same. It looks identically the same. And we have to have a pattern that imitates that midge pupa at the surface. For some of us, to help you out a little bit, it would be a zebra midge is a good pattern to imitate that. And the third and final pattern that we have to have is what we call a hatching pupa, or a hatcher. And what that basically is, it's a combination between an adult and a midge, meaning it's half in, half out of the water. It's actually crawling out of its nymphal shuck onto the surface where it will fly away. We need to have those three patterns, and we need to have those three patterns in different styles that we can choose from. So for me to attack that midge hatch, I'm going to watch it for a while, and I'm going to make a predetermined or a determined decision on what pattern I'm going to be able to use to best catch those fish, and make that adjustment based on those three patterns. And the last, well, not really so much the last, but one of the most important things about choosing the right pattern so much is choosing the right size of that pattern. So to give you an idea, trout are very, very, very size sensitive. That's part of their trigger mechanism. So before a trout takes a fly at the surface, it has to be the right size. And this is probably the most technical thing about a midge hatch. So when we talk about these three sizes, or these three different types of patterns, we should basically have them in different sizes. So if it help you, I would have them in 20, 22, 24s, and 26s. And I would have these patterns in various sizes so that I could check the right size and go back to a different a size smaller or a size larger until I narrow it down to have the right size pattern that those fish are feeding on, and then it becomes from a slow day to a very productive day. Now, also on that is the tippet. Tippet is the last 3 or 4 feet of your leader, and tippet is what when you buy a leader, it says 1x, 2x, 3x, 6x, whatever on it. It's telling you the size of that tippet section, and that tippet section is all one diameter, in our case 6x. We want to use a 6x or even a 7x sometimes because it gives us that really thin diameter. We're using really small flies. It helps us to go through the eye of the hook. We cut the tippet at an angle so it has a point. It goes through the eye of the hook. You can tie your knot, but it also hides it at the surface. We don't want to get any smaller than 7x. I rarely go to 7x because it's brittle. But in terms of fly fishing, if we can get the tippet right, the right size of the midge pattern, and we're going to have, I'm going to have pictures of all this throughout the videos for you to look at, then you're fully prepared to catch fish. In terms of nymphing, a midge pupa at the surface looks like a midge pupa at the bottom. However, many midge fishermen or nymph fishermen, midge nymph fishermen will put a bead on their midge pupa pattern. We would never put a beaded pattern at the surface. So we're using a midge pupa pattern on the bottom. There are no 3 different patterns that we use. We're only using one pattern on the bottom of the surface, and that's the midge pupa or a zebra midge. I hope this helps for you new fly fishermen fishing a couple of years or so. Hopefully this will guide you because we want to continue fishing in the winter. And for you old hobos like me, hopefully there's a nugget or 2 in here that you can use to enhance your own fly fishing. So in any case, I hope to see you on the river real soon. See you later.